So, welcome all to the Ukrainian Dynamics 365 and Power Platform user group meetup. Here we engage in insightful discussion on various technical topics about Microsoft Dynamics 365 and Power Platform, same as any associated technology stack to those products. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our esteemed community leaders, Elizabeth Akinfeeva, Maxim Ponomarov, and Valentin Kasenko, for their invaluable contribution to the growth and development of our community. We would like to inform you that today's event is being recorded and you can access the video later on our YouTube channel. As for today's meetup, it will be focused on the PowerPage Technical Architect interview, and it basically will be the simulation event. So it means that we're going to go through some real-life scenario of how the technical interview goes for the technical specialist or the senior plus technical lead architect level for the PowerPage projects. So we are excited to have you all here as we dive deep into the world of the Power Platform and explore the challenges and opportunities faced by the PowerPage technical architect. Our goal mostly is a glimpse of what PowerPage architect interview looks like to showcase the most typical questions, scenarios, and answers that may help you in your future interviews. Today, the second person accommodate me will be Valentin Gasenko. He has quite huge experience with the PowerPage projects. For last couple of years, he cooperated with Microsoft in the European Delivery Center, working on the two most biggest and hugest PowerPage projects around. So he will answer some of our questions. We will try to maneuver between a little bit more functional questions like the pricing model, applying different approach, how to customize or configure Power Pages, same as we will go into more technical things, how to integrate the Power Page, how to cooperate with some LLM processes and do some customization via some JavaScript web files and so on. But as for now, let's start with the basics. So Valentin, so what's the Power Page about? Why the client may need it? What's the main benefits it can get from it?
Thank you, Max. First of all, hi there. Let's talk about basics. Power Pages. So Power Pages provides a quick way to bring up a client-facing website like an internal portal. Website to access the client's internal data, extending the security model and allowing significant saving in infrastructural aspects and overall invoicing. So in general, by utilizing Power Pages, organizations can create powerful and interactive web portals that improve engagement, streamline processes, enhance their overall customer experience. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned some pricing in one thing. Like in general, what should be the benefit from me from the technical side? So let's say I'm going to have the Dataverse environment with all the infrastructure, but we already have some front-end team that are capable to develop some React application and make same as front-end, back-end stuff to integrate with the Dataverse API. So what infrastructure benefits and invoicing pricing I will get as a client to switch to the Power Pages?
Okay, so several points about infrastructure. Power Pages leverage the underlying infrastructure of the Power Platform, including data storage, security, scalability, and integration capabilities. The platform abstracts much of the underlying infrastructure complexity, allowing developers to focus on building applications quickly using visual development tools. Yeah, that's the first point about Power Pages infrastructure. About pricing, we don't pay for resources. We just buy the tiers. We don't have to pay for the license per user. Plus, we automatically get geo-replication and all the bonuses of the most expensive tiers Azure hosting.
Yeah, interesting. So let's say that we need for some reason better performance. Like, is it possible to purchase better tier, like more servers, more availability in other regions, or like how SLA works here?
Yeah, we can control our SLA. We can extend our service. We can extend our performance. That's it was funny case on my previous project. So first of all, as you know, you pay for Power Pages through two different types of website visitors: authenticated and unauthenticated users. Authenticated users are those who sign in to your website using an identity provider, such as Azure Active Directory, Microsoft account, or social media account. Unauthenticated users are those who visit your website as a guest. So, Power Pages licensing comes in the form of two different plans: prepaid subscription Power Pages licensing and pay as you go Power Pages licenses. A prepaid subscription allows you to pay a fixed fee for a certain number of authenticated and anonymous user per website. Pay as you go lets you pay only for the actual number of authenticated and anonymous user who visit your website. So about service, about licenses, that's a good question. Literally, on a previous project, we had a situation where it turned out that one of the servers didn't have enough licenses. The server itself, of course, remains in working order, but tech support refused to service it. And the resources of the server itself had been severely reduced. Thus, it was working at about half its capacity. This was discovered a few months later. Yeah, I don't know if there are any official letters or to our trustees, but we discovered it by accident, and thank goodness we paid the necessary fees rather quickly. The performance improved immediately after that.
Okay, so it sounds ridiculous from the one side, from the other, I guess still capable to use the service even when it's unpaid. Okay, nice. Then try a little bit from the other side. So you mentioned that we're having some gear application automatically as part of the paid subscription, paid tiers. What about some multi-language support? So let's say I have like the main site in the German, but I would like also support English, Ukrainian maybe. So what are our options from the technical side to achieve it?
First of all, before the answer, excuse me, I needed to turn off my camera because I have some slow internet today. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's okay. I can see some slowness.
Yeah. So about multi-languaging, yeah, that's a good point. Power Pages offer built-in features to support multi-language and localized content. You can define multiple languages, create language-specific versions of content and templates, use language tags or placeholders, and leverage language preferences to dynamically display localized content based on the user's language choice, providing a personalized user experience. So there are several important notes. I think it makes sense to translate our portal at the very end, when the lion's share of the code has already been written. First, you do some standard steps. Enable your language in Dynamics, export translation from your solution, like in Dataverse, in Dynamics 365 before, upload translations into your environment, edit portal-specific text, etc., etc. Any web page that you create in your portal will automatically create a subsidiary localized content page that houses the actual page content. This can be viewed in if I remember correctly, in a subgrid on the web page form. When you enable a new language, a new localized content page will be automatically created in that language. However, this won't be automatically translated. So you must go to each web page that your portal uses and go into the newly created localized content page and translate any text in the copy fields, summary fields, content title, etc., etc. So in general, like a summary, yes, we can, but do not forget about our pitfalls.
Okay, good. And from the technical side, is there any way how we can like prepare ourselves, simplify our life? So you mentioned quite nice tip that it's beneficial to make the translation in the very end. So basically enables the language because of, as you mentioned, those duplicate localized content pages. But from the development perspective, is there any approaches that you should stick to simplify your latent localization? And in general, it should help you with your development? Just in case, my question mostly comes to things like content snippets, maybe web files, some liquid-specific development.
Yeah, as you know, for different languages, we have separate localized content. So we need we can prepare some templates for that, and maybe for our multi-language, this template should contain basic info, should contain some core template for our child, maybe templates or something else. And also about developments, all ROMs, all our title, all our strings contains in content snippets. So don't forget, if we are already enabled multi-languages, then content snippet gets automatically this new language. And of course, about developments in JavaScript, in CSS, please don't forget to create separate web file. So do not use content for pages. Do not use internal information in our forms, etc., etc. So please use separate web file.
Okay, but for the web files, a lot of developers that are against them because they like mentioning the main argument that it's like making the development slow. You need to upload the new web file. You need to sync the configuration. Like it take time. Is there any way how to, let's say, work locally with the web files or something like
that? Please use system version of control for that. I think that's not a problem. That's just a development process, especially if we're talking about our UI developers. I think that's a normal process.
So how you can achieve like multiple developers working on the same web file?
Separate branches. And if we're talking about Power Pages, we can use in our branch strategy, we can use separate environments. So
okay, let me be more
yeah,
specific. You have one environment with 10 developers. All of them should work in the one single web file. How you can achieve that result from the perspective of the development. So right now I need to write a new function, extend our object, extend our namespace with new functionality. You also need to make a hotfix for the other function, like how to the LM aspects we'll get a little bit later. From the development perspective, is there any way how you and me can work in the same time under the same logic on same environment, the Power Pages?
But again, they only need to check their function. So I mean, if I want to add something new in our file, then I don't want to use your function, correct?
Yeah, let me try to rephrase. So we are currently in the sprint, so development sprint. You and me have an active user story with a task on which we are working on. So both of us should make a change to the same web file, and we are working in the same environment. So we are not able to like, I will do my job today in the morning, then I will ping you and you will do your job after the lunch. We should do it at the same time. How we can achieve the way to work together under the same functionality in the same environment.
Same functional, but yeah, I thought if we're talking about only our functionality, we can use Fiddler for that.
Okay, so that's what I was looking for. And how Fiddler can help us with that? Like, what's the purpose of it?
So we can make our local changes, and we can use Fiddler for Power Pages environments, like replace current web resource, current web file to our local version and test it.
Okay, sounds good. Then let's switch a little bit to the other side. Let's talk about the performance situation around the Power Pages. I guess it's like not in use to everyone, that Power Pages not something that you're looking for working with the big data, with working
100%, 100%, yeah.
So one of the benefits you mentioned in the start, so it quick and easy way to give an access to your internal data. But let's say that like we need a way how we can show large amount of the data on the page. What approaches we can use for that?
Yeah. So as we mentioned before, Power Pages is not designed to handle terabytes of data, and the well-known limitation of the 5,000 records per page hints at this. But if you really want to, Power Pages can handle significant amounts of data, including tens or hundreds of gigabytes, millions of lines. For example, on my last project, we had the task of display hundreds of thousands of data instantly. This is a huge amount. 12 fields and hundreds of thousands of rows. That's terrible. We tried everything we could think of. Data tables with lazy loading, entity lists with pagination, caching these records, the normalized tables, POC with Power BI, etc., etc. There were even thoughts of using Azure Cosmos DB and Azure Function, which would allow us to quickly operate with the right data. So all in all, at the end, we agreed on the pre-filtering. We load an empty page. User selects the filters. We do the query. If it returns less than 50,000 records, and this, as we know, the aggregate limit of Dataverse, then we show him these 50,000 strings. Otherwise, he's notified that we have to select some more filters. But about best practice, generally speaking, of course, there are consideration and strategies for improving performance when working with large data sets. First, don't forget about your current data model itself on Dataverse site. In general, effective data modeling is crucial for working with large data sets. Consider optimizing our data schema, relationships, indexes to improve query performance. If necessary, normalize or denormalize the data and provide appropriate indexing of frequently used fields. That's the first point. Secondly, of course, for Power Pages, that's normal point, pagination and data filtering. Implement page sorting and filtering mechanisms to load and display data in small chunks, rather than retrieving the entire data set at once. This approach reduces server load and improves overall performance of Power Pages. Of course, we can use caching. Use caching mechanisms to store and deliver frequently used data. Caching static or less frequently changed data can reduce database query and improve response times. Power Pages provide caching capabilities such as output caching and integration with the Azure Content Delivery Network. That's some specific topic. Yeah.
I will interrupt you because it's a huge topic that we can.
It's a huge, yeah. Okay. Just a couple of things without detailed description. Also, don't forget about query optimization, entity permissions, resource optimization. Don't forget about monitor and test performance, like application insights. Yeah, etc. We have a lot of best practice for Power Pages.
Okay, looks like you have quite advanced experience with that. But let's just, for our guys here, like from the technical side, what's the way how we can show some data on the Power Page from the simplest to hardest?
Simple way, we can use out-of-the-box contents like entity list, like fetch XML via Liquid. That's the most simple way. Custom way, hard way, we can use some plugin like data table. It's a specific jQuery plugin for big data. For good performance, by the way, we can use internal indexed DB for a local user site. That's a completely custom approach, but still that's a good one for performance for high speed.
Okay, good. You mentioned the data tables. I would argue about the jQuery plugin. It's basically the native JavaScript one that provides one of the options to use the jQuery. But how exactly are you going to fetch the data for the data tables?
We can use several approaches. We can use old approach like fetch XML through Liquid templates, or we can use modern approach like JavaScript and web API calls.
Okay, good. Is there any difference between the Power Page API and Dataverse API? In general, of course.
Yeah, in general, of course. Yes, we have a big difference. So the main difference between Dataverse API and the web API, it's contents of our data. For example, if we are talking about get some entity get accounts. Then for Dataverse API, we just got almost rare data, like GUID for owners, GUID for created by, some another rare data, option set value, etc., etc. If we are talking about Web API, then it returns for us complete data. Means under the hood, it already contains joins. So our created by contains not GUID, but name of the user. Owner ID contains not GUID, but name, etc., etc. But of course, it's a bit hit for performance. Web API a bit slower than Dataverse API, of course.
Okay, good.
Yes, sorry, excuse me, just one point. If you want to use Web API for your Power Pages, please don't forget to enable these specific settings for your portal. Separate configuration. You need to use, if I'm not mistaken, it calls site settings. So we need to create special contents. We need to create special config for that, for entity and for fields for your entity. And then you can use Web API.
Good. What about station if you would like to make the integration with something else? So not the Dataverse. Is there any options for that?
Yeah, of course. Several ways. We have a good way, we have best practice, Microsoft best practice way, and we have fast way. Not a good, but fast. So we can use some API, third-party web API directly, but of course without security checks, security privileges, etc., etc. Just to get API, get data, and set to your fields. You can use this data in your JS, in your tables, etc., etc. But if we are talking about good approach, of course, we can use custom connectors. We can use Power Automates. In the worst case, we can use Azure function, Azure CosmoDB, and API for get some data and set this data for middleware database, etc., etc.
Okay, and if I would like to have some secure way to communicate directly from the Power Pages with some API, so that API expects to receive some sort of way to authorize, authenticate me.
Yeah, that's a completely good point. In this case, we have several approaches. Basically, we can create a separate connector to our third-party system and create Power Automate flow.
I would like to have the direct, so from the front-end side, from the Power Page to API.
But do you want to use some specific token for that?
No,
before but that's a difference for security. We can use something like an implicit token for our API for our Power Pages, or if we don't use some security privileges, if it's not if it's not big value for us, then we can use direct API call to third-party system.
Okay, it sounds like implicit token what I'm looking for. So could you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, so in Power Apps portal, implicit tokens provides in general, not Power Apps. Implicit token provides a convenient way to access user-related information without the need for additional server-side code or explicit variable assignments. Implicit tokens can help in creating dynamic and personalized experience with our pages and some third-party API. And of course, this feature allows to make client-side calls. Client-side calls, as I mentioned before, to external APIs and secure them using OAuth implicit grant flow.
Okay, so let's assume I will enable that implicit token mechanism on my Power page. As I'm aware, it provides you more like an internal token rather than your public one. As you mentioned, we can have some social networks or let's say Asia B2C. So target system may know nothing about our token. What will be the approach, like architecture decision here, how that third-party API or some service will know that our token are real one? Like what's the security here? How will we build it?
Let me think.
Let's just like a little bit details here. So for example, if I will use the Asia portal to make the app registration and will provide an access for that app, for example, to the Graph API. So knowing the client secret, I can implement the implicit flow here and receive the token to communicate with this application. Like as my account are an Asia account from the Asia ID, it will generate the same token that those application may expect, and that application will read my token GVT details to like get my scope, my roles, and understand like what exactly I can do, for example, with that API. So it's like same ecosystem, same approach, everything is same, looks good. When we're talking about the Power Pages, generation of the implicit token flows that you mentioned, it will give you internal Power Page token. So as application, as API, know nothing about your approach. So my question more about the exact detail, how exactly as application may consume your token. So parse and validate that your token are real one, that you're really user of that tenant of that environment, and you have some roles, some permissions to access that API. Because otherwise, anyone can fetch, hack your token, or just generate some random token and try to call the API. So how we can validate the token?
If I'm not mistaken, in Power Pages, we have some specific settings for OAuth 2.0, and we can use like side settings, these token like separate settings, and we can just change that for our calls. So it means we can get it, use for a current session, and just something like that.
Still not a little bit to other side. So let's reverse the question. For example, I should build an API. I should build a service that expect one of the consumers or integration would be on the Power Page. So they send me that token, and me as a service should verify that that user is a real user. So technical from the implementation side, how I should verify that that user exists. So I have no access to the Dataverse. I have no access to the Power Page, some internal stuff. I'm third-party developer from third-party company that like try to build the API. What should be our steps to verify the token?
But as a third-party developer, do you have an access to Power Pages or not?
No.
If
That's you integrate with me, not me with you. My work just to receive the request, check that you are the right person to answer, and give you the response.
If I'm not mistaken, implicit tokens are prefixed with the user keyword. So we can use specific keyword via Liquid. Like a user is authenticated, indicates whether the user is authenticated. User is anonymous, indicates whether the user is anonymous, not authenticated, etc., etc.
No, unfortunately, I moved in the wrong direction. So as initially you have mentioned, so implicit flow, that's one of like standard public things. And idea of it that you will generate the token. And that token, it's basically GVT, secured, formatted text that contains information about the user's application, audience, scope, and so on. Beside of that information, it contains like hashed information about how you can verify that token as a real one. So beside of that, like on the Power Page, you need to enable implicit flow, you need to provide the certificate for it. Power Page will automatically generate the public certificate information. So me, as a developer from a third party, can access specific endpoint from the Power Page, and it will give me the key how I can encrypt your token to verify that it's valid. So whenever I will receive the request from you with a token, I just need to check it with an certificate key that I received from the Power Page. And it will say me, like it will give me the result saying that, okay, the token is valid, that a valid person. Then that's up to the way how it will work. Like maybe I have access to the Dataverse, so I can ping the Dataverse to ask what your security roles or web roles, to be more exact, or we just agreed that that's okay just to validate the thing. But nice, good that you know about the implicit flow. I would suggest to finish with the biggest topic and one of the harder thing for most of the Power Page developers, the LM process. So there were few adjustments, few things. What's currently the best practice, how we can deploy the Power Page to work with multiple environments of the Power Pages? Like, what's the way?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good point. Important. Before that, maybe do you know that we have some new idea from Microsoft about new ALM implementation, new ALM features? It's like using separate components in our solution, like a site, which will already include everything you need. Right now, it's something like a preview. So, yeah, maybe it's our future, maybe not. Let's see. But in general, it's funny, of course. 2021 year now, and people still can't cope with Dataverse solutions. So Microsoft also added portals there. Yeah. Okay. So
no code approach, like rather than help for functional consultants, help for the citizen developers to move their changes. But like from the technical side, what are options?
Yeah, if we are talking about technical sides, we have several approaches. Again, about the previous experience, previous project, the contents of the portals migrated for some time using the data migration utility. Yeah, but then in the Power Platform tools package, added a step uploads portal. So through the Azure DevOps pipelines, became possible to create an artifact of the entire portal and migrate these data to the target environment. So right now, I think that's most popular case when we have contents data, Azure DevOps pipeline, we can get current data from our Git, from our system version control, or we can get portal data directly from dev environment, create artifacts for that content, and run release pipeline for target environments. Release pipeline for upload these content.
So it's basically close to the same what we do with the solutions. But for example, if I would like to use unmanaged, like given the managed solution, it each time takes the full solution and apply the full set of changes to the environment. So like it's not trying to figure out what have changed, it just apply everything. How it differs from the Power Pages? Or it's also all time deploy everything?
Excuse me. Do you mean upload our data partially to target environments, or what exactly?
No, that's also a nice part, but more generic one. So in case of the solution, like I'm not able to say like I have the full solution in my source control, hundreds of tables. Let's say that's like a mono solution. It contains flow, security roles, templates, and everything. So each time I would like to make the deployment, it takes a full zip, it pushes a full zip, and then Dataverse trying to figure out like what have changed and just apply as is. Alternative for that, use the patches and deploy the patches. From the Power Page side, like what's the difference? So in solutions, there are no, let's say it's tracking of what have changed at all. Like it's just everything or nothing. Like how that tracking works for the Power Pages.
Tracking for Power Pages we can include on our system version of control. So if we use okay, yeah, I got it. I got it. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, that's another part. That's another part. I got it. I think we can use our ALM manifest YAML. It's separate document, separate configuration, where we can use last of our content. So we can set some specific content that has some specific version.
Sorry.
So again, for specific content, for Power Pages, I think we can use manifest.
Yes, how, like what's the content of the manifest, what it contains?
Contains for different environments. It's something like environment variables.
Okay, it just generated me one additional questions, but getting back to the manifest. So let's simplify a little bit. So I'm currently doing my task, my work. I have a Power Page on my local machine. I use fiddlers that you mentioned to like develop the things, but now I would like to push my, let's say, changed web file to the Power Pages. Like how exactly my Visual Code extension understands like what exactly should be pushed to the Power Page. Because if it will push everything, it will just override other users' changes, other developers' changes. So how it identify from that manifest file what exactly should be pushed to the environment?
In our manifest file, we can use like a cache. So manifest contains our not a cache, hash of internal information. It's like a control sum.
Okay.
Control
awesome.
sum
Good.
of previous version, yeah, and control sum of current version.
Okay, good.
And yeah.
You also mentioned the way that we can override some specific things for specific environment. So I would assume it's something like the deployment profile for the solutions, where I can specify environment variables, but we have something similar for the Power Pages.
Yeah, almost the same. We have separate configuration. We have separate YAML files, and we can prepare our environment variables. Separate for dev, separate for test, etc., etc., etc.
So it sounds like those two files are the most critical, important for your LM process, for your pipeline.
Sorry, again, could you please repeat?
Yeah, it sounds like those manifest file and your profile are the most important things for your LM process.
Yeah. But of course, sometimes we need to use environment variables, but sometimes no. So it's just dependent on current structure, dependent on current process.
At least like the top title, you will have specific for each environment. One will say it's a dev environment, other it's an UAT.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
So
main page, yes.
Okay, good. And getting back to the LM stuff, you mentioned that you may have environment specific for each developer. So how we can achieve it for the Power Pages?
Of course, it depends on current structure. If we're talking about separate environments for our developers, then it means we need to use some master dev environment. If we are talking about only one environment for all our dev team, then that's okay. We can use just our system version control, separate branches, and merge them to master branch.
Okay. Let's say for the solutions, it's a bit clear for me how to merge solution from one environment with solution with another environment. Even it's not the best practice by the Microsoft for some particular customization, but in general, it makes sense. But for the Power Pages, as you mentioned previously, and we agreed, the manifest contains a hash of the changes. So it means that on one environment, you will have one manifest, on the second environment as manifest. So is it also the files that should be merged, or you're going to generate it on other environment, or it will be maintained manually, or you will just ignore that file? What will be the way of handling that manifest file?
That's a good question, because before I just ignored this file for another environment. Yeah, and just gets complete portal content complete portal changes get from master branch and set to target environment. But ideally, I think we need to merge it.
And why we should do it? Like, what will be the benefit for us maintaining the manifest file up to date?
Again, it's something like internal or system version of control. This control sum, this hash. It means it's a property of our current value. So it's most easier for us to understand what happens on our target environment.
I would say that the main benefit of maintaining the manifest file just to merge the deleted stuff, because then on your target environment, it will be also automatically deleted. And it means that you will have a few less manual steps on the future deployment.
Yeah, I agree. That's fine point. Yeah.
I guess we have about 5 minutes till the end, so let's pick up something easy and quick one. We started from the rights and licensing on the start. So let's make some practical thing, getting from the previous responses. So let's say I'm a new customer. I already have the Dataverse, but I need to make a decision to develop an custom portal that will have like no limitations, no problems. I can do whatever I want. I can use any modern front-end technologies. I can make some single-page application using nice-looking some React, Next.js, and so on. Or I can pick up an Power Page and just consume almost everything pre-built it. Yeah, it will be slower, maybe not so nice looking. It will have limitations with an Bootstrap free version 3.4, but like in general, from the pricing perspective, will be the difference for me, like from the licensing approach. So let's say if I will get the Power Page, it will cost me for 100 users around $200. So I expected. So as a requirements, let's say I'm expected to have 100 users. All of them should be authenticated user, and they will make operations with the data inside of the Dataverse. So basically, they're going to adjust the data in our organization. So looks like my price for the Power Page would be around $200 per month, plus maybe some additional licensing, some storage and things, but in general, it should be something around $200. Could you give me some expectations for me? What will be my pricing for my custom portal if I will be build it fully custom? So let's ignore the development cost, like team maintenance cost, maintainability cost. Questions only from the invoicing side for infrastructure, for licensing.
So, and again, we can forget about current performance. So that's fine for us if we have some not so high speed for Power Pages or not. In general, yeah, it depends. It depends from a lot of factors. I think that's a good point. Like a pay-as-you-go Power Pages licensing for you.
Sorry, we'll try again. So I would like to have an answer from you for the price of infrastructure and required licenses for me to build my custom portal. Custom, I mean fully custom development, not a Power Page.
Custom portal, then yes, it means, but still, you need a full Dataverse license. Full.
For what? Why?
I'm
going to use non-interactive users. So it's just as per the agreement, I can use non-interactive. It's part of my subscription. I can have like millions of requests. So why should I buy some licenses?
But again, do you have some accounts? Do you have some contacts?
Yeah, but I have non-interactive user. So it was designed to make like application to application integration, server to server. Like, why should I pay something additional?
So yes, then if you already have Dataverse licenses, then you can use only non-interactive for your Power Pages. Non-interactive, it means not for data, not for data from someone. Just to read general information like anonymous user.
Yeah, but like I can make an impersonate calls. So just even the call will be from my application, I will just add that call on behalf of Valentin. So your name will be on last modified by column. Or like what exactly means that it's like none?
I mean, it's like anonymous users per website. But of course, if we're talking about best practice, Microsoft says that's not good because you work with the data.
What do you mean by that?
So again, if you want to use portal for your users, not without any anonymous, then you need to use separate license for your users. One user, one license.
I have those non-interactive thing.
Sorry, again, can you hear me?
So like, yeah, maybe some technical issues on your side. So what I'm saying, like according to the Microsoft, for any integrations, if I would like to build some third-party portal, I can use non-interactive tier. So it gives me like my application server-to-server communication, so I can fetch data from the Dataverse. It has its own limitations, but mostly based on what you have paid already. So I'm not really following why should I purchase a license per user as
because because that's not a Microsoft best practice, because you want to use your data on Power Pages site. That's the point only for server to server. So between your data and between Power Pages, of course, that's okay. You can use some MS SQL server, something like that. But if you want to use direct data,
I'm getting good.
Yeah. So you need to use license per user, and that's cost a lot. That cost a lot.
Yeah, I could. My concerns was just from your wording. So you mentioned the best practice. It's basically not the best practice. It's a violation.
No. Sorry. I don't said best. I said not best practice. Maybe, but
Anyway, it's a
Iterate
violation,
issue, yeah.
not a practice. So if you're
Yeah.
going to use non-interactive for a personalized integration, so it basically means that your user is authenticated to the site and it has its own like analog person, so it can impersonate itself with Dataverse as a user there in one way or another. It means that it doesn't suit you for the non-interactive. So if you're going to anyway use non-interactive way, it means a violation of the licensing agreement because you have known that it was server-to-server type of integration, but you decided to use it for impersonate calls. Okay, good. I guess that's all from my side. Thanks a lot, Valentin, for your time and that 1 hour quick technical review. Hopefully, we'll make another sessions later on in the next months. For now, I would like to thanks everyone for joining the event. Quite soon, we are going to announce our next event for July, and it will be super nice, interesting topic about the using of the Copilot in one of the Power Platform products. Have a nice evening. Have a nice time. Bye-bye all.
Thank you, Max. Thank you for the interesting and challenging questions. Thanks a lot.